Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author, and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over, or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
All of my friends tell me that I'm the good girl, yes they do. They all see me as being so perfect, little Miss Goody Two Shoes. 'Cause I do something a little risque, they all gasp and I just say, good girl, wanna get crazy sometimes.
I'm that recovering good girl, and you are a Victorious Woman Empowerment Partner. And this is where us Victory Chicks and you guys love us meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to make our lives better and more fulfilling and give us a little more jazz and sparkle. I'm so glad you came to Happy Hour today. You know, from all my years as a student and a teacher, I always think of September as a new beginning. So I can't help but think the same thing with my business. You know, jazzing things up after summer's slower pace. And this is just about that time of the year where we're getting ready for September. And for those of us in business, we know we're coming up to not too long we're ending our third quarter and heading into our fourth quarter of the year. I was thinking that it might be good to have somebody talking about that, so I invited Small Biz Lady Melinda Emerson to join us today to talk about business goals and fixes. And she has two books, one about starting a business and one about fixing your business. So she's going to be here shortly. Don't you think we've had some wild weather in our part of town this summer? Geez, Monday's flooding pushed us over the edge. In my mind, it did. I had to go to New Jersey for a family funeral, and just getting on the main roads, I had to turn around twice because of blocked off roads due to flooding. It was kind of scary. I mean, I know down by the Brandywine, we see that a lot. You know, over by the Brandywine Picnic Park, we see that all the time. But this was like practically right outside my development. Going to the funeral, I connected with some of my extended family. And, you know, we've gotten to the point, well, I don't know, I guess we've been there for a while, that we only see each other at weddings and funerals. And there aren't so many weddings anymore, so it's mostly funerals. And weddings it's not that they're not having weddings, it's just so expensive to invite all the extended family that mostly we see each other at funerals. And it isn't like we don't like each other. You know how it is, you get busy with your own family and your own circle, and time seems to be so short. But this week, my cousins who live more locally, one from Jersey, one from Delaware, a couple from Southern Chester County, and a couple from Delaware County, we all talked about it, and we decided to connect more often instead of just for the sad stuff. Now, I hope that happens because I like all of them. And a few of us took pictures. I didn't post it yet, but I will post it on the radio wrap-up. And it includes my Colorado cousins. We had a whole group of a whole family that moved to Colorado at some point, which was so different for all the rest of us who were all very local to Philly. So this week, a lot of stuff was going on in the Catholic Church. It became front and center in Pennsylvania. And it's so disturbing to me. All my years as a Catholic school teacher, I was really proud to do that. And I was proud to be a teacher. However, I did see a lot of unchristian-like behaviors from our clergy. I also saw some amazing dedication and devotion by both priests and sisters to God, to Mother Church, to the parishioners. And it's sad that those priests are getting sullied by this crappy stuff. To me, there's so many priests in charge who ignored the disgusting things that were going on. And when they couldn't ignore them, they didn't protect the innocent children who were damaged at the hands of bad men posing as holy priests. And for those of you who know, in the Catholic Church, we always considered those men, the holy priest, as being just that holy. But too many of them were bad men. And may they all rot in hell, and may those children who are now adults find peace and justice, including from the Pope, who, in my opinion, should be doing much more around punishment and prevention. And the fact that they didn't before and they don't do it now accounts for why pedophiles think they have a safe haven in the priesthood, with no respect or regard for those who truly have a vocation. And maybe that covering up stuff is why no popes at least not the current one or the two previous ones, will allow women to become priests. When there's a dearth of priests, you would think they would open it up to women, and they don't. So I'm thinking maybe they think that network of permissiveness will be infiltrated and exposed. And you know what? It would. And then they wonder, apparently, without much introspection, why the numbers of faithful in the Catholic Church have dwindled. They should be paying attention to that. Although you and I are old enough that we probably learned a long time ago, no matter what religion it is, you cannot put your faith in the people in charge. Because it's that old, we learned it in school, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So your faith has to be not in the people, but it just has to be between you and God. Those people who are the in charge people, the priests, nuns, whoever they are, those people should be not much more than facilitators of process. They facilitate the rituals. They keep things moving along. They keep the church going. But that's all. They're facilitators. They're not holy people. Well, that's so much for that. Also in this week's news, a lot of celebrity things. Of course, sadly, I'm sure you've heard, the amazing Aretha Franklin passed away at age 86, and she was pretty universally liked with her music. And it doesn't matter if you were around during her pop musical heyday in the 1960s and 70s or came along later than that. She was the Queen of Soul over decades. And we all know her top hits like Who Doesn't Know Respect. And even just a couple of years ago, the then 70-something Aretha performed at Pope Francis' Festival of Families that was held here in Philadelphia. And she was singing Nessun Dorme and putting her soulful spin on that opera classic. If you missed it then, I posted a link to it on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. It's pretty amazing. And there were a couple other milestones that will just freak you out if you haven't already heard about them. Nearly everyone loved the musical Grease when Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta were the it couple of the moment as they danced their way through the funhouse singing You're the One That I Want. Remember what that was like the first time you saw it on the big screen? It still gives me a giggle when I see it on TV. Well, Grease just turned 40. And if that isn't enough to flip your brain, here's another one. Madonna's 60th birthday was yesterday. And remember when she was writhing on the floor in a white dress singing like a virgin at the MTV Awards? That was 1984. And back then, Madonna and Cyndi Lauper were my bad girl favorites. And now Madonna is 60, Cyndi is 65, and she's on Medicare and doing commercials for a cure for psoriasis. Jeez, I guess it happens to the best of us, huh? As I used to say to my mom, that's what you get for waking up every morning. Of course, victory chicks and you guys, if you consider the alternative, getting older isn't a bad thing. In fact, don't you sometimes think you prefer this age to when you were younger? Sometimes I do. Like I miss a lot of that energy stuff. But when I was younger, I had no confidence. I let other people tell me stuff and thought they knew more than I did. And they didn't. They just knew what they wanted me to do and figured they could get me to do it. I never told people to screw off, that or any other variation of that phrase. I pretty much did what people wanted. I was the good girl. Good thing I'm in recovery, huh? And back then, I always wanted to do more and do better. So that could explain why I was incensed last week at Trader Joe's. I was looking for something in the cracker aisle, and while I was looking, I listened to three guys who were stocking shelves. And I'm guessing they were in their mid-20s. It could have been 26, 27. And they were talking about work and doing things they wanted to do that were not work. And as I was leaving the aisle, going towards the cheese case, I heard one of them say to the others, I'm wasting my youth working some job. And when I heard it, I literally stopped moving. I pretended I was looking at the cheese, but I was just stunned. And I thought, geez, Louise, what the hell? Who do you think you are? And honestly, it was everything I could do not to go back and ask him why he felt so entitled to not have to work. And who did he think was so much less than him that they should support him while he was enjoying his youth? Like, did he think that his probably 50-something parents should be doing it? And it's not like he was in some high-stress corporate job or outside in 90-degree heat or 20-degree cold digging ditches or installing cables. He's at Trader Joe's. I mean, even the baristas at Starbucks have it harder, especially during those high volume hours. And did you know, in addition to the 10% discount employees get at Trader Joe's, they contribute to a retirement plan for their employees, offer medical benefits for just $75 a month. Compare that to my $700 a month. And employees can accrue time off. I think that's why you see so many older folks working at places like Trader Joe's and places like Wawa. Good bennies. In my opinion, that boy, well, he wasn't a teenager. If he was a teenager, I wouldn't be so critical of his comment. But that man was too old to be complaining about wasting his youth working and instead be more concerned about figuring out what he can do to make his life something he can be proud of. Of course, one thing I definitely believe in is that marriage and children change things. And who knows, maybe he'll decide to start a small business. And if he does, I hope he'll connect with the Small Biz Lady, our guest today, Melinda Emerson. She is America's #1 small business expert, reaching 3 million entrepreneurs a week online. Her mission is to end small business failure. Forbes named her the #1 woman for small business owners to follow on Twitter. So she's here, and we'll be talking to her after the break. So go get some good happy hour, something to drink, and come back for some small biz chick chat. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour, and welcome Melinda Emerson. I am so glad to be talking with you today. How are you doing?
I am great, Annmarie. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm doing good. Melinda, you and I have known each other for a long time, but here's the piece when I was thinking about it, when I was reading your book, I realized I don't think I know how you became the Small Biz Lady.
Oh, my gosh. You want to hear that story? All right. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes.
Okay.
When I was rolling along in my business back in, I started my first company in 99. And in 2005, my business was doing very well. I had the largest female-owned production company in Philadelphia. My then husband was able to leave his full-time job and join our business full-time. And then I got pregnant with our son, and I ended up on bed rest for 6 months.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, I went from being the worst workaholic you ever met to not being able to leave my house for 6 months. And by the way, Wi-Fi was not what it is today. I had a Palm 3 cell phone trying to run my whole life. So you can imagine,
wow,
it didn't run so well. I was up at the hospital 3 times a week getting testing done. It was a really, really stressful, challenging time. And what I learned in that time was that I had made the #1 mistake that small business owners often make. I had built a business that couldn't run without me. So in that time that I was home on bed rest, running the Lincoln getting tests done, literally my business fell apart because I had built a culture that I was the only rainmaker in my business. And when I wasn't there wasn't no rain, So it was really a scary time. But the good thing about having 6 months to relax at home was it was the first time I had stopped and thought about my business. And what I realized is that I would have run my business better if I had had better advice. But at the time, you're talking about 2005, there wasn't anybody out here on a regular basis giving small business advice. You had Susie Orman and Jean Chasky giving financial literacy advice,
right,
but nobody was saying, hey, this is what I need in my business. And I decided that I was going to put myself in charge of helping all the other entrepreneurs so they didn't have to make all the expensive mistakes that I did. And so for me, I really, it was because everything was falling apart that I realized what I needed and what everyone else needed. And so that is how I became the Small Biz Lady. So my first order of business when I decided that I wanted to be an expert was to write a book. So I wrote Become Your Own Boss in 12 months. I ended up on the phone with the publisher, and he was like, all right, send me what you got. I sent him 4 chapters in the table of contents. I never had an agent. I never had a book proposal. I just had the Lord blessing me and putting the right person on the phone with me. And he published my book. And literally, my book was due to my publisher September 1st, 2008. Now, you remember what happened about September 14th, 2008, right? People's 401ks became 101ks, after the market crashed and everything. So my publisher called me and said, listen, thank you so much for being a first-time author and actually, turning in your book on time. But we don't think anybody's thinking about entrepreneurship right now, so we're going to postpone the release of your book until March of 2010.
Huh.
And that was
Surprise.
18 months after I turned that book in, which was a nightmare. And Annmarie, I think that's about the time I met you when all that stuff was going on.
I think it was.
And so literally somebody in NSA, in our organization, National Speakers Association, said to me, hey, Melinda, listen, if I was you, I would get you a publicist and I would start publicizing that book like it was coming out anyway. And I looked at that person like she had 3 heads. But then I said, okay, maybe I can't. And so I ended up hiring a woman to help me, and her name is Kathy Larkin, and she happened to be a publicist that knew social media early on. And back then, it was like Twitter and LinkedIn, right? I don't even think they let adults use Facebook back then. But anyway, so
because they were all using MySpace,
right? Everybody was still using MySpace. I mean, that's how long ago this was. But guess what? This woman said to me, Melinda, you mean to tell me we got 18 months to build your author platform? This is great. I thought she was crazy, right? Because I'm like, this book isn't coming out for 18 months. What are we going to do? How am I going to make money in the meantime? Blah, blah, blah. She said, listen, trust me, we're going to go out to Twitter and build your brand on Twitter. And I said to her, what is Twitter? What are you talking about? I didn't even know what Twitter was.
Yeah, and I remember you were doing that. You were a really early adopter of that.
I was. And that's how I became the Small Biz Lady, because the first day when we went to Twitter to set up my account, my name, Melinda Emerson, was taken. And we had to come up with a nickname. And Melinda, so I'm on the phone with Kathy Larkin. She's on the phone with me, and we're trying to kick around some names. And I said, well, are you going to give me a name like Mindy or Melly Mel or something? And she said, no, fool, you're not a rapper. I'm not going to give you a nickname like that. I said, okay. And she said, I got to give you a nickname that tells people who you are and what you do. And I said, oh, yeah, like what? And she said, like Small Biz Guru. I said, when my first book coming out, I don't think I'm bold enough to name myself a guru. And she said, okay, well, how about Small Biz Expert? That's great keywords. I was like, I'm not feeling it. And then finally she said, how about Small Biz Lady? And I said, okay, you know what? I think I can be that lady. And what we now know, 9 years later, that was the best branding accident that ever happened to me, because now, as the Small Biz Lady, I have a brand that reaches 3 million entrepreneurs every week online.
I've watched you over these years, and I have to tell you, at the very beginning, when I knew you through NSA, at that very beginning time, and I used to go on your Twitter chats, I couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
It was like I couldn't figure it.
You were like, I couldn't figure this out. Yeah.
I could watch it, but I couldn't participate.
It was like double dutch, like it was moving too fast, like the ropes were swinging around, and you were like, okay, I want to jump in, but, but I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
But now it's been 9 years I've been doing Small Biz Chat.
Yeah, you have been,
years.
and Forbes named you the #1 woman on Twitter.
Yeah, the #1 woman
Small
for
business,
entrepreneurs to follow on Twitter. Yeah, and that was really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah, so it's been an amazing ride. But the moral of that whole story, though, is that every kick is a boost. Because when my publisher threw me under the bus and said they weren't going to publish my book, I thought like the sky was ending, And then all of a sudden, that was the reason why I started hustling. That was the reason why I got on social media. That was the reason why I started blogging. And next thing you know, I'm America's #1 small business expert.
Do you think that format would still work today?
I don't think so. I mean, there's so much content out here, and now everybody's trying to be an influencer. I do think this, though. there's a lot of content out here, but there's still not a lot of really good content. So I still think that if you have valuable content, you can build a brand. I don't know that you can build it the way I did it, but there's definitely people still building brands on Instagram and on YouTube and certainly still on Twitter. But it's a lot harder because now everybody's hip to the game, so it's not new anymore. You've got to figure out some new modality to do it now.
Well, Melinda, I want to talk about the building your brand thing, but before we do, I have a lot of listeners who are already small business owners. But before we talk tips for them, some of my listeners are thinking about starting a business. It's like because we talk a lot about midlife reinventions at the Friday Happy Hour, and you said earlier one of the most common mistakes that a new owner makes is to build the business around you that only you can be. Right. The one. Yeah. What are some of the other ones?
Well, I think that if you're thinking about starting a business right now, the first thing you got to think about is what you want and why you want it. Because a lot of people running a business is tough. So what you might need is a new job versus a new business. Because a business, you go from one job to 12 jobs overnight.
That's true.
Getting a new job, you might do 3 jobs, but you ain't doing 12. So you really have to think about whether or not you have the wherewithal to do that and what kind of life you really want to live. If you want more time, starting a catering business specialized in weddings where you tie up all your weekends from, April to October might not be the right thing. So you really have to think it through. The second thing you got to think about, though, is how you're going to pay for it, because the money to start your business is going to come from your right or your left pocket, right? Banks do not loan money to start up businesses, so you do have to figure out how are you going to fund your lifestyle, your household, and this new business, because banks don't even want to look at you until you've been in business 2 years and have positive cash flow. So you've got to think about that. The third thing you got to think about is what skills you have versus what skills you need to run your particular kind of business. Just because you bake great cakes doesn't mean you should open a bakery. Running a bakery and baking great cakes is a huge difference between those two things. So you really got to get clear. Maybe you need to go work part-time for a bakery so that you know what it is to run a bakery. The fourth thing you got to figure out is who your paying customer is. Too often I see people, they get excited about their logo, about their website, about the invitations to their grand opening event, and if their life depended on it, could not tell you who is their niche target customer. And you've got to have that, because when you're in business, you've got two things, limited time and limited resources. So you cannot market to the world. You have to market to a very specific target audience. And then the fifth thing you got to do is write a business plan. Do not spend more time planning your vacation than how you're going to support yourself financially. Do you need a 40-page manifesto business plan? No. But do you need 10 good pages that's going to talk about how your business runs, how you're going to get leads, who's going to follow up on those leads, how the product or service is going to get delivered? Yeah. Yeah, you need that. You need a budget. You need to understand what your initial expenses are going to be. You got to think about all this stuff. You got to think about the market. You got to think about your market position. These are the things you think about when you work on a business plan. So do not make the mistake of all these people out here now talking about people don't need business plans. That's ridiculous. Spend the time to plan for success. It's not going to just happen to you. And the last thing I would say is start your business as a side hustle. I do not believe in folks quitting jobs to start businesses. That's crazy. You need to keep those paychecks rolling as long as you can so that you can learn on somebody else's dime, because it takes 12 to 18 months for a small business to break even, let alone replace your corporate salary. So it could be 2 years before your business is throwing off any money. So be really careful about your timing to leave your job, unless, of course, you're starting a job that competes directly with, you're starting a business that competes with your job. That's a problem. You do need to quit your job. But everybody else, keep your job. Work your evenings and weekends to grow your new business.
Melinda, I used to do recruiting for the local Better Homes and Gardens real estate. I was their training manager. So I ran the corporate university. I created the corporate university and I ran it. And part of that included recruiting. And I would find people who, at the time, they were still giving golden handshakes. And they were leaving at 55 or 60 and saying, I always wanted, now they had some income coming in, then they would say, I always wanted to do real estate, and that always was a warning sign to me. When somebody said, I always wanted to do real estate, I thought, yeah, you're looking for some place to go during the day and not necessarily where you're going to make money, because you're probably not going to make money for 6 to 8 months in the real estate business.
More than that. If you don't have a network to sell to, more than that.
Melinda, we need to take a break. So when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about all of this and about fixing your business. So everybody stay close. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly. I'm here with Melinda Emerson. And Melinda, you help people become their own boss in 12 months. Is that realistic?
Oh, yeah. It is. It is. I mean, sometimes it takes people longer, usually because their credit might not be where they want it to be, or they need to save more money before they, transition into business ownership. But yeah, 12 months is actually a realistic time frame. Most people complain that 12 months is too long of a time to plan, and I'm like, come on, that's actually a realistic timeline.
So now this new book, Fix Your Business, how did you come to write it?
Well, I wrote Become Your Own Boss in 12 months 9 years ago. And what I realized was that over the years, so many people, I was so identified as a startup queen. If you want to start a business, talk to Melinda Emerson. She's a small biz lady. She's a startup queen. And I really wanted to do something for existing entrepreneurs, because over the years, I've gotten so many emails, voicemails, letters from people who just need help, who just want to talk to me. And I just couldn't figure out how to service all of those people. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to write a book that helps people stop being stressed out by their business. I want to write a book that helps people figure out how to take a laptop-free vacation. I want to help people stop feeling like their business is running them. And so that's why I wrote Fix Your Business.
So your first chapter starts with a list of things that you should pay attention to, and I'm embarrassed to tell you, at least half of them I'm guilty of.
Most people are. Most people are guilty of at least 3 to 6 things on that list. No doubt. And listen, and it took me, 19 years to get to the point where I figured out how to teach other people about this stuff, because, you got to eat your own dog food to know why these things are important, right? So I already made all the expensive mistakes so other people don't have to. But, the whole premise of my book is based on what I call the 12 P's of running a successful business. So the first P is preparation. And the reason why the first P is preparation, because, listen, I don't think people don't know what's wrong with their business. I think they haven't made the decision that they're ready to deal with it. It's like getting in your car and hearing a ping in your car, but you ignore it because you're in a hurry, you got to go somewhere, and then you get back in your car and you hear it rattling again, but the kids are in the car screaming, you just keep on going, and then the third time you get in your car, you put your key in the ignition, Bessie won't start, because Bessie was telling you something was wrong the last 2 times you got in the car. Well, that same thing's going on in your business. You got a troubled employee employee that's causing problems for everybody and stressing you out, but you don't want to go through the trouble of firing that person and replacing that person, so you let that cancer stay in your business. Or you got a whole bunch of slow-paying customers, and they stressing you out because you're constantly having cash flow problems, and you're too afraid to fire them and go get a real good-paying customer because you're afraid of what might happen if you don't have them. Well, what might happen is your life might get a lot better when you get a client that appreciates you more and prioritizes paying you, right? So there's all kinds of things going on in your business, and you know it, but you just haven't decided that you're ready to fix it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is purpose. And the reason why purpose is the second chapter in my book is because sometimes we have to reconnect with our why story. Yeah. Because the reason why we started a business versus the reason why we still need to be running it might be different now because you're different now. So you really have to reconnect with what I call your mission, your vision, and your passion. And all that wrapped up together really gives you your purpose. So for me, like, my mission is to end small business failure. That's a huge mission, right? But my mission is important because I'm always going to be striving for that mission. But my vision was to become America's #1 small business expert. And I accomplished that. But that was my vision. And then my passion is to help entrepreneurs. So that's how all those things get pulled together in a soup. And that, coupled with my why, like my why I'm doing it, that's how you get your purpose. And sometimes when people are disillusioned in their business, they just got to reconnect with their purpose. And then the third thing is people, right? And if you got people, there is potential for problems. But really, there's three kind of people problems. Either you need people and you don't have them. You got the wrong people working for you, because we as business owners, some of us, we're bleeding hearts, right? We'll hire our cousin instead of giving them a check, right? We might have the wrong person working for us. We don't use job descriptions. We hire people when our hair is on fire. So that's a great way to get the wrong person working for you. And a lot of us are out here doing that. And then the third people problem is you don't train people. You hire people and throw them the keys and say good luck. And then you are upset when they don't meet your expectations. And meanwhile, your expectations were in your head. You have to write a job description. You have to really develop an onboarding process or a training process for people. And then you have to follow up and hold people accountable. You can't just train people once. You have to do ongoing training with people. And the more time you spend training people, the longer they are likely to stay with you. And so that is why training is so important. But the other thing is you got to think about, what is it like to work for you?
That's a very interesting. I know that's a really interesting. That's really interesting, because if you're a kind of person who needs a lot of communication, and you're not communicating with your staff, you might be hiring people that need a lot of communication, and you're not giving it to them, and they feel lost.
Exactly. And then everybody's frustrated. That doesn't work. So you have to know what your communication style is and hire people that are going to work around your communication style, because you are the boss. But you have to understand all of your employees are different. Like if you have children, all your children's personalities are different. Same thing with your employees, right? So you've got to make sure that you are working on your leadership and that you understand that as the business owner, you got to be a mentor and a coach to everybody that works for you. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And sometimes we don't realize that. We just feel like we should pay people and they should show up and do their job. Well, it doesn't work like that. You got to put something into people to make them a core employee. And then the fourth P is profit. And this is really important, because I think a lot of people focus on sales instead of profit. You got to know how much profit is in every sale. And matter of fact, my good friend Mike McAllowitz, who I interview in my book, he wrote a book called Profit First, and he talks about how you should have a Profit First account, and no matter what check comes into that business, a piece of it needs to go into your profit account, because that's your money, this is your business, and you should not be a volunteer slave in your business, constantly pouring all the revenue back into the business. That's not how it works. You need to be taking a check regularly and having a profit account, and that's what we talk about in the profit chapter, really just getting your money rules under control, so that most businesses go out of business because of cash flow management or poor cash flow management. So that's all about money and how it really should be working in your business. And then in chapter 5, wait,
Melinda, before you go on, in that chapter on the path to profitability, you talk about the path to profitability, and you say you have to commit fully to minding your own business to generate profits.
Oh, yeah.
Now, how common is it not to do that?
People aren't even calling an accountant until tax time. People aren't looking at monthly financial statements. People aren't using budgets to make financial decisions. They get caught in bright, shiny object syndrome, and next thing you know, they sign up to go to a trade show where maybe 40% of the audience is their target customer. They're not asking themselves why 3 times before they make a purchase for their business. They're just doing it.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is the shiny new thing. I'm going to get it.
You didn't need the iPhone 10. The iPhone 9 still works. There's stuff we do in business and we waste money every day. And we don't have money to waste because our money is hard to come by. So, you have to mind profit, not just sales. How much money is that sale making you? Was that sale worth your time? That's what you got to be focused on. Increasing profits, not necessarily increasing sales, increasing your profits.
Interesting.
And then it's about processes, because if you're walking around with how your business runs in your head, what is going to happen to your business if you get hit by a bus? You've got to make sure that your signature processes, your routine processes, your intellectual property that is your signature processes is documented. And you document it so you can train to it. You document it so you can hold people accountable to it. And you're never going to be able to delegate if you don't document what you need to have done. So take the time to do that. And then once you do that, then it's time to look and see if there's a technology solution that can save you time and money. What about your receipts? Can you scan them with Adobe Scan and get them into a system and get them there's all kinds of stuff you can do to save time, to stop pushing paper in your business. And if you go to fixyourbusiness.com, I give a list of the tools, the software, the stuff I like that's going to save you time. Because the problem now is there's so much software. There's so many apps. It's like, oh, my gosh, it's hard to figure out. So I gave you guys a great list of the kinds of software that I like that I think are great for small businesses. And then once you get past the first 6 chapters, then we start really getting into how your business operates. And so chapter 7 is all about performance. And performance is really about what you should be measuring in your business. And most likely, a lot of people aren't measuring anything in their business. Things like your Google Analytics. What social media is actually driving traffic to your website? Do you even know? Or are you just out here wasting time on Facebook because you think that's where your customers are? Look and see what's driving traffic. Then look at your accounts receivable turnover ratio. And that is how fast you get money after you issue an invoice. Really, really important, because that's why your cash flow is constantly strangled. Look at your email open rates. Look at your close ratio. Cost per lead. There's all kinds of things you could be measuring in your business, because it's one thing to know you're losing money. You need to know why, and that's where measurement comes in.
All right. Now, Melinda, we need to take a break, but when we come back, what I want to talk about is you talk about in Fix Your Business, you talk about presence and branding, and that's what I'd like to talk about when we come back. So everybody hang in there with us. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with the Small Biz Lady, Melinda Emerson. Now, Melinda, when you talk about presence, what do you mean by that?
Well, really, your presence is your brand online and offline. So your brand starts with your website. That's your number one sales tool. So you've got to make sure your website has your welcome mat out and you're ready for company. And now that we live in a mobile-first world, you really have to make sure your website looks great from a mobile device. And that is extremely important. So if you're going to invest money anywhere, invest it in your website. Very, very important. Next, I think your brand presence is about how you show up, how you look. When you show up to a networking networking event, do you look like the person somebody's supposed to be talking to? Or do you look like you just rolled out of bed with a wrinkled mess? You've got to think about what your brand is. But your brand is also your reputation. It's what people say about you when you're not there. And so if you've been in business any kind of time, you need to make sure you're going back and talking to your customers. You're surveying your customers. You're checking Yelp. You have Google alerts on your name and your business's name so you don't miss if somebody's out here talking good about you or talking bad about you. Like all those things you need to check and monitor because, sometimes when we've been in business for a while, you might need a brand refresh. You might need a logo refresh. And sometimes it's a new logo. Sometimes it's just a new color palette of your logo to give your brand some new energy. The last thing you want to look like is like you created your logo 20 years ago and your logo is screaming, I was created 20 years ago. That's not what you want. You want to make sure that you stay fresh and up to date. It's like getting a new haircut or some new hair color, right? You want to make sure that you look like you're still in the game, you're on top of it. And the other piece, too, is 75% of all professionals in the U.S. are on LinkedIn, and you need to make sure that you don't have a headshot that's more than 2 years old on your LinkedIn profile. You're out here with a picture from 20 years ago. Stop it. When somebody meets you, they're going to wonder.
Isn't that a big thing we talk about in National Speakers Association?
Oh, it's horrible. People using pictures from 20 years old. Really? I mean, use a picture that's no more than 2 years old on your social media profile, so when somebody meets you, they will actually recognize you. Please do that. One of the things we do every year is I do a photo shoot every fall to update all of my graphics everywhere.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we do that just because it's like I want people to know this is a picture that was taken of me yesterday. This is how I look. And so it's very important for you to be consistent all over the place. But the other thing, too, about branding, one of the things that you want to do is in addition to your picture being consistent everywhere, you need to make sure what you're saying about your business is consistent everywhere. What's on your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook fan page, your Twitter profile should be consistent and should tell people how to hire you. Nobody cares that you're a swim dad or a Steeler fan. They care how you can help them solve a problem. So you want to make sure that you're using that kind of language, the keywords that people are going to be using to find a business like yours in all of your profiles so that you can be found.
It's interesting. I'm just in that process right now because with my newest book coming out, The 5-Year Marriage, I have stuff on that website, but I haven't updated everything yet. And somebody introduced me and used my bio from Victorious Woman. And I'm thinking that I hadn't updated it for a while. And I'm like, where did she get that? And I thought, I have to go back and redo everything. And we forget that stuff, Melinda, don't we?
Oh, my gosh, you forget it. And it's very, very difficult.
Now, I have a question for you about this. Do you build your brand differently if you're a brick and mortar store than if you were online? And the reason I'm asking that, what if I want to switch? Like I'm thinking locally, there's a hardware store that I really like, but they're not online. So, but more specifically, there's a dress shop. Melinda, this is too funny. There's a dress shop in Newburyport, Massachusetts that I visit on my way home from vacation every year. And I love the dress shop. I love their clothes. They do nothing online. They send me coupons, which I would use, except You
forget them at home when you're traveling, sure.
And then when I get them, and I'm in Pennsylvania, I'm not going to go back to, and the closest one is in Massachusetts. I'm not going to drive up to Massachusetts to use like a $30 coupon. So, but I would use it if they were online. Do you build your brand differently if you're brick and mortar than if you're online?
No, you don't. I think that if you are a brick and mortar store and you're not online, man, are you missing an opportunity to follow up with customers that like you. I think no matter what you sell, you have to have a presence online. I think you need to be able to sell things online too. I think, you should not have a brochure website. You need to be able to transact business online with a great e-commerce website. I think sometimes people have two presence is online because the owner of the business might have their own persona online and the business has its own.
Right.
Or if you have multiple locations, it's okay to have multiple Facebook fan pages for multiple locations. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely, no matter what you sell, you need to have a presence online because we now live in a mobile-first world. 24% of people only have a mobile phone. They don't even have a laptop anymore. So you've got to make sure that your customers can find you. And if you are not online, that means if I'm doing a voice search or I'm doing dress shops near me and I'm in Boston, I would never find their store.
That's right.
And that's a mistake because people do mobile searches. 8 out of 10 mobile searches is in a search with intent. That's somebody looking for something to buy. So that's just such a missed opportunity for anybody not making sure they have a great online presence.
Well, that sort of takes me to the next thing that I wanted to talk about. I was reading where one of your 12 P's is in one of those chapters you talk about, and I love this, you were talking about growth, and then you say, make sure you have the mental bandwidth that growth requires. What does that mean?
Well, when you are in growth mode for a business, it's almost like going back to the beginning when you first got started. I mean, that's how much shoe leather it takes. That's how much mental time it takes for you to write up a new business plan or write a new strategic plan. It's not just going to be business as usual. You got to do business as usual plus some to build and execute a growth plan. And you've got to be willing to do that. You've got to be willing to go back and work that hard again. Because sometimes if you've been in business for a while, you kind of rest on your laurels. You kind of know what to expect. But if you're doing growth, you got to grow. You got to change yourself. You got to sign up for a leadership course or a workshop or a webinar. You got to start doing things you haven't done before. You got to go out and start networking again if you're looking for funding to invest in your business. All kinds of stuff you got to start doing. And that's what I mean by getting yourself mentally prepared to go out and work that hard again.
And I, with my newest book coming out, I've been going to networking events that I haven't had to go to for a really long time.
That's right.
And
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
And going back, and to tell you the truth, a lot of the people at the networking events that I've been going to are considerably younger than I am. That has not been easy.
I bet it hasn't because millennials are interesting.
Yeah.
They are very interesting and they're very transactional. So you have to even be more on your game to capture the attention of those people.
And I want my listeners to know that even though, like that very first time, I remember coming into the station and telling my producer, I think I might have been the oldest person there. But I kept going to that. This was a particular one. I kept going, and you know what? It was a little hard to get acclimated, but I feel like I'm part of the group now. It's not as though, Melinda, this is what I want my listeners to know. If you're going and haven't been networking, or maybe you've been going to the Chamber of Commerce and you see the same old people, this was a new group, and it was with younger people who are going to be maybe more your target audience, that it's okay to go and feel a little uncomfortable at first because they're interested in what you have to say.
They are. At least they certainly should be. But the other thing, too, is it's important to make yourself uncomfortable. We can't keep doing the same things over and over again and thinking we're going to get a different or better result. It's not going to happen. You got to push yourself. You got to go and network with younger people, or you got to take a class and you haven't been in a classroom in 25, 30 years. Those are the things you got to do because you got to update yourself. You got to update your skills. You got to get out there. And you also have to test things. Sometimes you can go to a networking event and test a new tagline or test a new pitch. I heard a great networking tip the other night. Someone said that instead of when someone says, "What do you do?" ask them a question and said, "Have you ever been running a business and gotten stuck?" That's my new question, right?
That's a good one because people, if you're in that kind of an environment, people say, well, yeah, everybody gets stuck.
Right. Well, I wrote a new book called Fix Your Business. Mm-hmm. I help people get unstuck. Boom. Then everybody's all of a sudden listening to me. Instead of making it about you, make it about the question about them. And that gets people to draw people in.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you this about branding. You talk about being the face of your brand.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you are going to have a business, people still want to do business with people they like, know, and trust. People want to know who's behind the business. Nobody wants to do business with people that are anonymous on the internet, right? No. They want to see who runs this business. They want to have a phone number to call if something goes wrong or if they just need more information. So you've got to come from behind the curtain and show them who you are and write down content. That's how you share your thought leadership and demonstrate your expertise.
And so are people still doing blogs?
Oh, yeah. Blogging is still working, but people are doing very niche blogs. People are doing all kinds of different content. Blogging doesn't mean writing anymore. Sometimes people are podcasting. Video is hot. Video is converting more than anything else. A lot of people are doing a video, on their blogs. So there's all kinds of different things. Infographics. All kinds of stuff. People are absolutely. I'm still blogging. It's still working for me. So.
It is, and your blogs are good. I've been on your website just this week, and your blog is good. And just so that my listeners know, if you don't know how, I think when you've been in business a while and you haven't been using video, you think, well, I don't know how to do that. And I've in the last couple of months have gotten very familiar with Zoom. And that's
Zoom is wonderful. I use Zoom all the time.
Yeah, Zoom's really good because you can do something and turn it on, turn it off, and upload it right away.
Absolutely.
And neither one of us have a stake in Zoom, so
not at all.
Yeah, we just really both like it. Is there any we're going to need to be leaving soon, Melinda, but is there any one particular thing that you can give my listeners that if they could do one thing right today? Because you have your book's so good in talking about fixes. And is there one particular thing that if we're going to get ready we're wrapping up the third quarter, getting ready for the fourth quarter, that we should be doing right now?
Well, it's time to develop your first quarter plan for next year. Mm-hmm. It's time to start thinking about 2019. If you are somebody who is a retail or e-commerce business that makes all your money in fourth quarter, like holiday time, it's time to get planning now. It's time to order your inventory and shipping supplies now. It's time to start interviewing your temporary staff that are going to come in and help you in developing training materials and frequently asked question lists now. If you are a B2B professional service business like me, it's time to start looking at, do you need, look at your team. Is it time to get a new salesperson? What's going to be the new strategic plan? Who are going to be your new strategic business targets for 2019? And when do your clients' budget cycle start so you can get in the mix so you don't get left out? That's what you want to be doing now for 2019.
Melinda, we could talk for another hour, but we're going to need to go. How can people get your book?
Fix Your Business is available on Amazon, or if you want an autographed copy, come to my website, which is succeedasYourOwnBoss.com. And if you can't remember that, just Google Small Biz Lady. You'll find me, Small B-I-Z Lady. And I am Melinda Emerson everywhere and Small Biz Lady everywhere else on the Internet.
And all of that information is also on the radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. Melinda, thanks for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me, Annmarie.
Glad you did. Thank you. Joseph and I are ending our 5-year marriage, so we're in negotiations for another one. So I could be getting married again at the end of September. So stay tuned. I read some interesting quotes about the end of summer. 2 of these that I like. One of them is, August should not get a speeding ticket. We say it goes so fast. And another one is, August is like the Sunday of summers. But it was Lily Pulitzer who said this: it's always summer someplace. And Victory Chicks and you guys, I hope that someplace is in your heart. May you always find summer there. Thanks so much for joining me at the Friday Happy Hour. I'm glad you did. Jen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.